The first sensation was the cold tile against my cheek, a stark, shocking contrast to the searing pain and the metallic scent of blood that had been my entire world moments before. Then nothing but the frantic beating of my own heart. When I opened my eyes, I was staring at the familiar popcorn texture of my dorm room ceiling from my freshman year of college. The digital clock on my nightstand glowed a soft 6:17 a.m. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through me. I scrambled out of bed, my legs, both whole, both unbroken, carrying me to the full-length mirror on the back of the door. I stared at the reflection. Long, waist-length raven hair framed a face still soft with youth, untouched by the years of bitterness and neglect that had carved their lines deep in my previous life. This was me, Alara Vance, at 18. The day after my first official date with Kaylin Sterling. A date I had worked toward for 3 agonizing years. Memories, not dreams, flooded me. The 3-year marriage. The coldness in our shared home. The devastating video from his sister, Seline Chin, sent to my phone on a Tuesday afternoon. Her smug voice echoed in my mind. If his mother hadn't stopped me, I should have been the one to become Mrs. Sterling. You think marrying him means you've won? Think again. He doesn't love you at all. You're just my replacement. The rush to his office, divorce papers clutched in my hand. The screech of tires, the shattering of glass, and the overwhelming, unjust darkness. I sank to the floor, tears of rage and relief streaming down my face. I was back. I had been given a second chance. And my mission was crystal clear. I would become the exact antithesis of everything Kaylin Sterling desired. He liked long flowing hair that he could run his fingers through. He called it feminine. That very afternoon, I walked into the most avant-garde salon in the city and told the stylist to take it all off. I watched in the mirror as years of devotion fell away in dark sheets onto the floor. What was left was a sharp pixie cut, edgy and bold, that made my eyes look twice their size. He preferred gentle, demure women who spoke softly and knew their place. So I called my old friend Leo. "Hey," I said, my voice strangely light. "You still up for hitting the waves this weekend?" And after that, I heard there's a party at the Sigma house. The silence on the other end was profound. "Alara? Is that you? Did you hit your head? You told me you were giving up surfing because Kaylin thought it was unladylike." "A change of heart," I said, a genuine smile touching my lips for the first time in what felt like eternity. "A big one." The rumors started almost immediately. Whispers followed me across campus. Alara Vance cut her hair. Alara was seen dancing on tables at a party. Alara Vance is completely off the rails. I wore it all like armor. A week later, at Leo's birthday party at a loud, neon-lit karaoke bar, I made my entrance. The private room was thick with smoke and the din of off-key singing. I weaved through the crowd toward Leo, who was belting out a rock ballad with dramatic fervor. He spotted me mid-chorus, his eyes widening comically. He fumbled the microphone and it screeched with feedback. "Whoa, Lara. Your hair," he boomed, his voice cutting through the music. The room fell into a sudden, awkward silence. All eyes turned to me. I saw the shock, the confusion, the subtle judgments. And then I saw them. In a corner booth, Kaylin Sterling sat, his arm casually draped around the shoulders of Seline Chin. His expression was one of pure, unadulterated disapproval. Celine's face, however, was a mask of faux surprise that barely concealed her glee. "I don't think it looks good," she said, her voice a syrupy sweet dagger in the quiet room. She immediately covered her mouth with a delicate hand, her eyes widening in a perfect pantomime of regret. "Oops. I'm so sorry, Lara. I accidentally blurted out what I was thinking. You know me, I've always been the straightforward type. You're not mad, are you?" Before I could even form a response, Kaylin stood up, his tall frame imposing. He echoed her sentiment, his voice cold and firm. "Yeah, it really doesn't look good." His defense of her was a public declaration, just as it had always been. The atmosphere turned to ice. But I felt nothing but a cool detachment. I smiled, a real easy smile. "It's fine. I like it, and that's what matters." Kaylin's jaw tightened. He grabbed my wrist, not roughly, but with an undeniable possessiveness that made my skin crawl. "We need to talk. Outside. Now." In the dim, sticky hallway, he loomed over me. "Alara, what is going on with you? Who told you to cut your hair all of a sudden? Didn't I say I liked long hair on you?" I looked him dead in the eye, the words feeling like a liberation. As your girlfriend, Kaylin, I interrupted him, my voice steady. Let's break up. The air froze. He stared at me, confusion and anger warring in his features. He frowned, about to dismiss it, to tell me to stop being dramatic. But then a commotion erupted from inside our room. Leo's voice raised and angry, and Celine's theatrical crying. Kaylin's frown deepened. With a cold scoff of utter exasperation, he said, "Whatever. We'll talk about this when you've calmed down." And he turned and hurried back to comfort Seline. I watched him go, the familiar pattern playing out exactly as expected. He thought it was a tantrum. A negotiation tactic. He had no idea that the woman who had loved him with self-destructive abandon was gone. In her place was someone he would grow to despise. And I couldn't have been happier. The silence after Kaylin disappeared back into the party was louder than any music. I stood in the hallway, breathing in the stale air, feeling the weight of the past and the terrifying lightness of the future. Leo found me a moment later, his face a storm cloud. Did he just... I swear, Alara, I'm going to... Leo, I said, cutting him off gently. I placed a hand on his arm. It's okay. Really? His anger deflated, replaced by confusion. What's going on? You've been acting weird for weeks. And now the hair. And you broke up with him? For real. For real, I confirmed, my voice softer now. I already broke up with him. His eyes widened in disbelief. What? Seriously? But you loved him. The way he said it wasn't accusatory but protective, as if he was mourning the person I had been. I thought I did, I said. And then, overwhelmed by a wave of gratitude for this friend who had stood by me even when I became a stranger to myself, I suddenly leaned in and hugged him, resting my chin on his soft shoulder. A lump formed in my throat. Thank you, Leo. Thanks for not giving up on me. He stiffened for a second, then relaxed, patting my back awkwardly. It's just a breakup. Come on. The world's full of good guys. I'll help you find someone even better. He said it with his characteristic dramatic flair, but the concern in his eyes was real. Leo and I went way back. We'd been neighbors since we were kids. When we were 10, he'd gotten terribly sick and the strong medication made all his hair fall out. The kids at school were merciless. I even back then was never the demure type. I'd gotten into 3 fights that month, my knuckles perpetually scraped, defending him. We bonded over shared passions. The thrill of catching a wave, the rush of skiing down a black diamond slope, the freedom of street dance. We were inseparable. Until Kaylin Sterling walked into the high school cafeteria. It was my freshman year. I'd broken my leg during a dance recital and was navigating the social minefield on crutches. The bullying was constant, cruel, and inventive. Gimpy, they called me behind my back. They'd stick out a foot to trip me, hide my books, steal my homework. One afternoon, a group of boys snatched my history essay, a project I'd spent weeks on, and ran laughing. I gave chase, my crutches throwing me off balance, tears of frustration streaming down my face. I knew I couldn't catch them. That's when he appeared. Kaylin, a senior, tall and impossibly cool, stepped into the hallway and simply held out a hand. The boys skidded to a halt. "Give it back," he said, his voice quiet but leaving no room for argument. They did. He handed me the slightly crumpled papers. "You okay?" he asked. In that moment he was my knight in shining armor. For the rest of high school I was his shadow. Everyone knew I liked him. I molded myself into his ideal. He mentioned offhand that he liked girls with long hair. I stopped getting trims and let it grow past my waist. He said he found quiet, gentle girls elegant. I quit the street dance club, stopped my surfing trips with Leo, and buried my fiery spirit. I became a hollow, polished version of the girl he wanted, and he, intoxicated by my devotion, finally agreed to be my boyfriend. He took me to meet his family. That's where I met Seline Chin, the girl his parents had adopted. She clung to his arm, a sweet, poisonous smile on her face. "Alara, you're so pretty. Kaylin, you're lucky now. Actually, I kind of look like Alara, don't I?" I'd been too blinded by love to see the warning in her words or the stiffness in Kaylin's smile. Now back in my dorm room after Leo's party, I made a list. A manifesto for my new life. 1. Quit the art club. I'd only joined because Kaylin said girls who painted were refined. Seline, a talented artist since childhood, made sure I always felt inferior there. 2. Rejoin the street dance crew. 3. Call mom and dad. I'd neglected them too in my quest to please Kaylin's family. Live for me. The next day, I marched into the faculty advisor's office and handed him my withdrawal form for the art club. Several members were there, including Seline. "Why is Alara dropping out?" one girl whispered a little too loudly. "Doesn't she know it'll cost her credits?" Celine's roommate answered, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. "Why else? She tried so hard to copy Seline, but Seline totally outshined her. Now she can't take it and just gave up." Seline looked up from her canvas, her expression a perfect blend of modesty and smugness. She didn't want me to leave. The club was her stage and I was her favorite audience member to belittle. "You're quitting the art club? Does Kaylin know?" she asked, her tone implying I needed his permission. I turned to her, my new short hair making me feel powerful. "What does that have to do with him?" I shot back. She blinked, stunned by my directness. I didn't wait for a response. I grabbed my signed form and walked out, leaving the whispers behind me. For the first time I was walking away from them and it felt like flying. The following weeks were a period of intense, selfish peace. I threw myself into dance rehearsals, my body rediscovering rhythms it had forgotten. I went surfing with Leo, the salt spray on my face feeling like baptism. I focused on my classes, my own friends, my own life. I didn't check my phone obsessively for messages from Kaylin. I didn't care what he or Seline were doing. The calls started after about a week. I ignored them. Then one night my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment I answered. "Alara." It was Kaylin. His voice was weak, pitiful. "My stomach hurts. Can you bring me some medicine?" It was an old routine. He had chronic stomach issues and would often forget his medication, knowing I would drop everything and rush over. It was a power play, a way to prove my devotion to himself and his friends. This time I felt nothing but a cold void where that devotion used to be. "Kaylin," I said, my voice flat. "Did you forget that we already broke up?" He was silent for a moment, then sighed, the sound full of patronizing exasperation. "All right, enough already. I've already given you a way out of this. Stop being so stubborn, okay? I was wrong that day. I shouldn't have insulted you in front of everyone. You've been sulking long enough. I'm apologizing now." The arrogance of it took my breath away. He was granting me a pardon for a crime I hadn't committed. "Kaylin," I repeated, each word measured and final. "Seriously, we're done." I hung up, sat on my bed and let out a long, slow exhale. That, it seemed, finally got through to him. The calls stopped. A few days later, Leo started acting suspicious. He'd shoot me cryptic looks and hum dramatically. Finally, he cornered me after dance practice. "Okay, be ready tomorrow at noon. Wear something nice. Do your makeup. I have a surprise for you." "Leo, what did you do?" I asked, suspicion dripping from my words. "Just trust me," he said, already backing away. "It's gonna be great." With a sense of deep foreboding, I dressed the next day in a simple but elegant navy blue dress. Leo practically vibrated with excitement when he met me outside my dorm. Okay, he's already here. Play it cool." Who's he?" I demanded. But it was too late. We rounded the corner to the campus cafe and there, sitting at an outside table, was Liam Thorne. My breath hitched. Liam Thorne was a senior, a legend in our department. Impossibly handsome, ruthlessly intelligent, from old money and famously icily aloof. He was the unattainable star of the university, and he was currently waiting at a table set for two. I shot Leo a panicked look. "What is he doing here?" I hissed. With a completely serious face, Leo replied, "No, he's your boyfriend." I stared, utterly stunned. Leo finally burst out laughing. "Remember when I said I'd find you someone better? So, I posted on my social media about setting you up and I even included your photo. I said anyone interested could reach out." He leaned in, whispering dramatically. "And guess who did? Liam Thorne." My mind went blank. "Wait, how do you even have Liam Thorne's number?" "Oh, I added him during the academic symposium last semester. I had a question about a physics paper." "That's not the point." He waved it off. "The point is, today is your blind date. So get it together and make a good impression. I'm rooting for you." He shoved 2 tickets to the city's largest amusement park into my hand, gave a thumbs up to Liam and literally ran away. I was mortified. This was a disaster of epic proportions. I approached the table, my cheeks burning. I am so sorry, I began. Leo is a force of nature. You really don't have to. Liam stood up, a small, surprisingly gentle smile softening his usually stern features. He handed me a bottle of cold water. Don't be so nervous. Just think of it as hanging out with a friend. Have you been to Skyline Adventures before? His tone was calm, easygoing. There was no pressure, no ice-cold arrogance. Just a quiet, thoughtful warmth. My panic began to subside. Maybe he was just being polite. Maybe he had some ulterior motive. A project he needed help with, a way to get back at a business rival of my father's. The thought made me relax. I could play along for an afternoon. We decided to use the tickets Leo had provided. At the amusement park, Liam was a perfect gentleman. Patient, considerate, and observant. I gravitated toward the biggest, most thrilling roller coasters, but my dress made some of them impractical. Without a word, Liam took off his tailored jacket and draped it over my lap before I got on. The gesture was so simple yet so profoundly different from my experiences with Kaylin, who would have frowned and told me it was unladylike and dangerous. People really are so different. Just as that thought crossed my mind, I heard a voice that made my blood run cold. I turned. There walking through the crowd was Kaylin. And on his arm Seline. Our eyes met simultaneously. Kaylin's face darkened instantly. Then he saw Liam standing behind me. His expression twisted into one of pure, incredulous rage. He stormed over, Seline scrambling to keep up. Elara, what are you doing here? He demanded, his voice a low, furious growl. He looked like a cheated husband. I was too stunned to speak. Before I could form a lie, Liam stepped forward, placing himself slightly between Kaylin and me. And who are you? He asked coolly. Then out of nowhere he reached down and laced his fingers through mine. My heart stuttered. His hand was large, warm, and reassuring. I was too shocked to pull away. Kaylin's eyes zeroed in on our joined hands. We only broke up less than a month ago, he seethed, his voice rising, and you've already found another guy? I looked at his entitled, furious face and something in me snapped. I wanted to hurt him, to shatter his arrogant assumption that I would forever be pining for him. So what? I retorted, my voice sharper than I intended. Did you think I was going to stay celibate for you? In my anger, I had basically just confirmed that Liam and I were together. I froze, mortified, and glanced nervously at Liam. He simply looked down at me and smiled slightly, completely unbothered. Kaylin paled. No way. You're lying to me. You barely even knew him before. How could you be dating him already? You must have just seen us and made this up, right? He was right and it flustered me. I couldn't back down now. Who says I'm lying? I shouted, my confidence brittle. He's my boyfriend. Kaylin looked like he'd been slapped. Liam's face was unreadable. He simply tightened his grip on my hand, put his other arm around my shoulders and said calmly, let's go. And he led me away, leaving a speechless Kaylin and a wide-eyed Seline in our wake. When we were a safe distance away, I slipped my hand from his, my face burning with apology. I am so sorry, I blurted out. I panicked. I blurted it out without thinking. If it ends up affecting you later, I'll definitely clear things up. To my astonishment, Liam bent down so his eyes were level with mine. He gave me that soft smile again. There's no need to apologize. I came here today with the intention of dating. His gaze was sincere with a hint of vulnerability that shook me to my core. I'm happy you called me your boyfriend in front of others. Then he said something that truly stunned me. You might have forgotten, but we met before. I've liked you for a long time. When was that? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I racked my brain but found no memory of a previous meeting with Liam Thorne. He was the kind of person you remembered. Liam didn't elaborate. Instead, his gaze intensified, sincere and vulnerable. Since that's the case, he said quietly, would you be willing to give it a try with me? The question hung in the air between us, heavy and real. The pain of my past life with Kaylin was a fresh wound, a deep scar I was still learning to navigate. The betrayal, the neglect, the utter loss of self. It had left me raw. The thought of jumping into another relationship, even with someone as seemingly perfect as Liam, terrified me. I couldn't trust my own judgment anymore. I can't, I said finally, my voice laced with regret. It's not you. I need to be on my own for a while. Liam didn't press. He didn't look upset or rejected. He simply nodded, his kind smile never quite leaving his eyes. "That's okay," he said. "The offer stands. No pressure." We spent the rest of the afternoon in a surprisingly comfortable silence, walking through the park, people watching. He drove me back to my dorm, and as I got out of his car he said, "Thank you for today, Alara." "No thank you," I said, meaning it. "For everything." Meanwhile, Kalen was unraveling. After we left him at the amusement park, he'd fallen into a silent, seething rage. Celine's attempts to comfort him fell on deaf ears. His mind was a riot of conflicting emotions: anger, disbelief, and a gnawing, terrifying panic. He had never truly loved me at the start. I had been a convenient choice, from a good family, beautiful and utterly, blindingly devoted. A perfect stand-in for the girl he truly wanted but could never have, Seline. Their adoptive mother had made it abundantly clear that a relationship between them was a line that could never be crossed. My love for him had been intense, dazzling. I had molded myself into his ideal, and he had grown intoxicated by the power of it. He loved that I loved him. My sudden transformation, the haircut, the breakup, he had dismissed it as a tantrum, a ploy for attention. He was convinced I would come crawling back, that my love for him was too all-consuming to simply vanish. But seeing me with Liam Thorne, a man so clearly his superior in every conceivable way, and seeing the calm certainty in my eyes when I declared us broken up, it shattered his illusion. The thought that I might actually be moving on, that I might be happy without him, was intolerable. He began a campaign of pathetic, desperate attention. He sent extravagant bouquets to my dorm room. I donated them to the hospital. He waited outside my classes with my favorite coffee. I walked right past him. He called, texted, pleaded. "You've done so much for me. How could you not love me?" he said once, blocking my path to the library. "You're just mad at me, right?" His stubborn refusal to see the truth was exhausting. Unfortunately, his wasn't the only attention I was getting. It started with a post on the university forum. The title was brutal in its simplicity: Player. Beneath it was a photo of me, and the post was a masterclass in manipulation. It painted me as a calculating heartbreaker, stringing poor, devoted Kalen along while simultaneously seducing the wealthy and aloof Liam Thorne. It included evidence: photos of Kalen leaving gifts at my door, which I never accepted, and candid shots of Liam and me walking together on campus after our amusement park date. On its own, it might have been dismissed as gossip. But Liam's popularity and the drama of a love triangle ensured it went viral. Whispers followed me everywhere. Dirty looks. Anonymous hate messages in my campus inbox. I tried to ignore it, focusing on my dance rehearsals. Then one afternoon I went to change in the studio locker room. I twirled the combination lock, pulled open the metal door, and a small, bloody, dead rat fell out onto my shoes. I recoiled, a scream catching in my throat. Leo, who was waiting for me, jumped back with a yelp. "What the hell?" he shouted, his face pale. We both stared at the grotesque little offering. My heart was pounding, but a cold, hard calm was settling over me. I had lived through a marriage of emotional torture and a death full of regret. A dead rat was pathetic. "What do we do?" Leo asked, his voice shaking with anger. I looked at him, my expression grim. "Call the police." The authorities arrived quickly. It didn't take them long to find the culprit, a first-year girl with wide, frightened eyes and her hair in two childish buns. When they brought her to me, her face was a mask of fear and defiance. She had only meant to disgust me, to scare me. She didn't think she'd done anything truly wrong. "It's your own fault for being shameless," she sneered, though her voice trembled. "You're not only a player but also petty. Someone had to teach you a lesson." Leo looked ready to explode. I held him back, my eyes never leaving the girl's. She began to squirm under my unwavering gaze. "What do you want?" she finally mumbled. I turned to the campus police officer. "Wouldn't this count as intimidation?" I asked, my voice perfectly calm. "I would like to press charges. I refuse mediation." The girl's bravado vanished. Her face turned ashen. As the officers led her away, she started to cry, finally understanding the real-world consequences of her actions. It was likely she'd only get a fine and community service, but the message was sent. Leo smirked. "Guess this is what they call killing the chicken to scare the monkey." I nodded slowly. "The real person behind this is the one who made the post." I didn't need to guess. It had to be one of two people. I decided to confront Kalen first. I heard he was in the campus infirmary, his stomach issues flaring up again, likely from stress. When I walked in, his eyes lit up with a pathetic hope. "Alara, did you come here just to see me?" I didn't mince words. I pulled out my phone, opened the forum post and held it up to his face. "Did you write this?" He stared at it, and his expression morphed from hope to genuine indignation and hurt. "How could you think it was me?" He seemed truly shocked. He'd been in the infirmary for days, cut off from the campus gossip. He'd only just heard about the post today. Satisfied, I withdrew my phone. "All right. If it wasn't you, then I'll leave." But he grabbed my wrist, his grip weak but desperate. "Alara, please don't be mad. I know I shouldn't have embarrassed you in front of everyone last time. Please just forgive me. Just this once." I looked at him, this man I had once loved enough to die for, and I saw only a boy, confused and entitled. "Do you actually want to be with me?" I asked, my voice quiet but clear. "Or do you just want me to stay so Seline can look better by comparison?" His face froze as if I'd struck him. His voice was dry, brittle. "How did you know?" I didn't answer. I just pulled my wrist from his grasp and walked out. I didn't expect him to come running after me, barefoot and disheveled, his hospital gown flapping open at the back. He grabbed my arm, panic etched on every feature. "Alara, I admit it. I did think that way before, but I don't like Seline anymore. I really don't. I'm sure the one I love now is you." The words were empty. They were born of panic, of losing his possession, not of genuine love. I gave him one last, cold glance. "If you really love me, then please don't cling to me anymore." His face went deathly pale. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing barefoot in the hallway, finally understanding that it was over. Now there was only one person left to confront. Leaving Kalen in the sterile hallway of the infirmary, I felt a chapter slam shut. There was no satisfaction, only a hollow finality. The boy I had built my entire world around was reduced to a desperate, sick figure in a paper gown, and I felt nothing. It was liberating. But the game wasn't over. The source of the poison still needed to be addressed. I didn't go to see Seline Chin alone this time. I went with Leo, a campus security officer, and a lawyer my father had insisted on retaining after the dead rat incident. We found her in the art studio, meticulously adding details to a large canvas. She looked up, her sweet smile instantly freezing when she saw my entourage. "Alara, what a surprise," she said, her eyes darting nervously to the officer. "I think you know why we're here, Seline," I said, my voice flat. I nodded to the officer. He stepped forward. "Miss Chin, we have evidence linking you to an anonymous post on the university forum that constitutes defamation and harassment. We also have reason to believe you incited the subsequent actions against Miss Vance." Celine's mask of innocence cracked. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice rising an octave. "This is ridiculous." The officer laid out printouts of the post, along with digital forensic evidence tracing the IP address to her dorm room and a secret social media account under a pseudonym. He presented statements from the girl with the buns who, facing legal trouble, had quickly confessed that Seline had been feeding her stories about me for weeks, egging her on. Celine's mouth opened and closed. The evidence was irrefutable. "I just exaggerated things a little," she finally mumbled, her defiance crumbling into a whine. "It's not like I actually hurt you. Was it really necessary to get the police involved?" I let out a cold, sharp laugh. "Did you seriously think spreading obscene rumors comes without consequences?" Something in her snapped. The carefully constructed facade of the sweet, victimized sister vanished, replaced by a visage of pure, unadulterated hatred. Her eyes filled with tears of rage, not regret. "It's your fault," she screamed, her voice shaking with a fury so deep it seemed to vibrate the air. "Kalen used to only care about me. You're the one who stole him away." Spittle flew from her lips. "You two were never real. You have no idea what Kalen means to me. You don't deserve him. He's mine. He always has been." The officers moved to take her away as she continued to shriek, her words devolving into incoherent rage. Forbidden love, her adoptive mother's rejection, hidden desires, and a deep, festering resentment toward me had festered into a full-blown psychosis. Watching her being led away, her face twisted with insane hatred, a cold dread settled in my stomach. This wasn't over. People like Seline didn't just accept defeat. She was arrested, and though she was released on bail soon after, the damage to her reputation was permanent. The campus forum erupted again, this time with posts exposing her lies and manipulations. The title was apt: harming others always backfires. For the first time she was the one being judged, whispered about, and ostracized. She disappeared from campus for several days. I threw myself into my life with renewed vigor. The air felt cleaner without the constant specter of Kaylin and Seline. Liam, true to his word, didn't pressure me, but he didn't disappear either. He'd send a text about an interesting article he thought I'd like, or he'd show up to support our dance crew's performances, always sitting in the back, a quiet, supportive presence. My parents invited me to a high-profile charity gala. "It'll be good for you to get out, sweetheart," my mother said, her voice gentle. "You've been through so much." I agreed, mostly to make them happy. I bought a new dress, a deep emerald green that contrasted sharply with my dark hair and pale skin. When I walked into the glittering ballroom, I felt like a new person. And then I saw them. Kaylin's whole family was there. His mother, Eleanor Sterling, a formidable woman who had always been kind to me, spotted me immediately and glided over, Kaylin and a pale, drawn-looking Seline trailing in her wake. "Elara, my dear." Mrs. Sterling greeted me warmly. "You haven't been to the house in a while. I was just thinking about you the other day." Kaylin's eyes were fixed on me, full of a desperate hope. Celine's gaze was like a physical blow, hot with hatred. "Auntie," I said calmly before Kaylin could speak, "Kaylin and I have broken up." I glanced at him. He hadn't told her. Mrs. Sterling's smile vanished. Her face hardened into a mask of stern displeasure as she turned to her son. "What is this about?" Kaylin fumbled, shame-faced. "It's my fault. I'll do my best to make it up to Elara." Seline, ever the instigator, saw an opportunity and stepped forward. "It's not entirely Kaylin's fault." She never finished the sentence. Mrs. Sterling moved with shocking speed, her hand connecting with Celine's cheek in a sharp, stinging slap. The sound echoed in our little circle. "Don't think I don't know what's going on in your head," Mrs. Sterling snapped, her voice low and venomous. She was well aware of the inappropriate tension between her son and adopted daughter, and her disapproval was absolute. She turned back to me, her expression softening. She took my hands in hers. "Elara, if Kaylin upset you, I'll speak to him when we get home. Give him another chance. I truly hoped you would become my daughter-in-law." Kaylin's eyes lit up. Seline shot me a look of pure venom. I took a breath, ready to politely but firmly decline this entire ridiculous situation, when a familiar, calm voice spoke from behind me. "Elara, there you are. I've been looking all over for you." I turned. Liam Thorne was standing there, dressed in a sleek black tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped off a movie screen. He was breathtaking. He nodded politely to Mrs. Sterling and the others, then turned to me, his eyes warm. "Would I be lucky enough to ask you for a dance?" he asked, extending his hand. I looked at the stunned, uncomfortable faces of the Sterling family, then placed my hand gently in his. "It would be my pleasure," I said. After a polite but cold goodbye to the Sterlings, I let Liam lead me onto the dance floor. As we began to waltz, moving in perfect sync to the music, I leaned toward him. "Thank you, Liam. That was a real save." He chuckled softly, his hand warm on my back. "You're welcome. Though I really did want to dance with you." As the music swelled, he leaned close to my ear, his voice quiet and sincere. "Elara, don't give him another chance. You're amazing. He doesn't deserve you." Tears welled up in my eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of validation. For so long in my past life I had blamed myself. Was I not pretty enough? Not quiet enough? Not enough like Seline? Liam's words and the way he looked at me, like I was the only person in the room, washed away the last of that bitter residue. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It was that Kaylin never knew how to cherish anything of value. The dance ended. The spell was broken, but something new had begun. Liam and I started spending more time together. Slowly, cautiously, I began to let him in. This time it was different. I wasn't molding myself to fit him. I was simply sharing myself with him. We talked for hours. We debated. We laughed. I learned that behind his aloof exterior was a sharp wit and a deeply kind heart. He learned about my love for dance and the ocean. It was mutual. It was equal. It was everything I never knew I needed. but the shadow of Seline still loomed. I saw her sometimes on campus, a ghostly figure watching me from a distance, her eyes burning with an unstable fire. The bad feeling I'd had when she was arrested never left me. I knew. The peace was a fragile illusion, a thin pane of glass over a chasm. I felt it crack every time I caught a glimpse of Seline on the periphery of campus life. She had become a specter, pale and withdrawn, her usual coterie of friends having melted away under the heat of the scandal. The whispers followed her now, not me. But the hatred in her eyes when they met mine was more intense than ever, a focused laser beam of malice. Liam felt my tension. He was perceptive, often placing a reassuring hand on the small of my back when he saw my gaze drift nervously across a crowded plaza. "She can't hurt you," he would murmur, his voice a steady anchor. But I knew better. I had seen the depths of her obsession in my past life. A woman who would send a video of her infidelity to a wife, gloating, was capable of anything. The rational part of my brain knew the university had warned her, her parents had likely confined her, and the legal system was watching. But the primal part of me, the part that remembered the screech of tires and the shattering of glass, was on high alert. The day it happened started with a strange calm. I had a morning literature class that let out early. The sun was bright, the campus buzzing with the lazy energy of a late spring afternoon. I was supposed to meet Liam by the main fountain. We were going to study together under the old oak trees. I was texting him, a smile on my face, walking past the student parking lot. I heard the roar first. Not the normal sound of a car starting, but the violent, screaming rev of an engine pushed to its limit. My head snapped up. Panic, cold and instinctual, seized my heart. Time seemed to slow, elongating each second into a nightmare. A sleek black sedan, Kaylin's car, lurched out of a parking spot. Behind the wheel I saw a flash of pale, twisted features. Seline. Our eyes met through the windshield. Hers were wide, vacant pools of pure insanity, devoid of any reason or remorse. They were fixed on me. "Alara. Watch out." Liam's voice. I hadn't seen him arrive. He was sprinting toward me from the direction of the fountain, his textbooks scattering across the pavement unnoticed. The car accelerated, tires screeching, aiming directly for me. A collective scream rose from the students on the quad. I was frozen, a deer in the headlights of my own past life. Liam didn't hesitate. He launched himself at me, his body a shield, tackling me out of the path of the car. We landed hard on the grass, the breath knocked out of me. The side mirror of the sedan grazed the hem of my skirt, the force of the passing vehicle whipping my hair across my face. Seline slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt 20 yards away. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the sound of her engines still growling. She turned her head to look back at me, her expression a grotesque mask of fury and frustration that I had escaped. Then, without a moment's hesitation, she threw the car into reverse and slammed her foot on the accelerator, speeding backward toward where Liam and I were struggling to get up. More screams. People scrambled in every direction. Liam pulled me to my feet, his grip iron tight, and yanked me toward the relative safety of a concrete bench. We weren't going to make it. Suddenly, another figure entered the fray. He must have been looking for her for his car. He emerged from between two buildings, his face a picture of dawning horror as he took in the scene. His car, his sister at the wheel, aiming to murder the girl he now realized he couldn't live without. "Seline. Stop," he screamed, running into the road, directly into the path of the reversing vehicle. He wasn't trying to be a hero. It was a desperate, stupid, instinctual act to get her attention, to stop her. He waved his arms, planting himself directly behind the car. For a split second it seemed to work. The brakes lights flashed. But it was too late, or perhaps she never intended to stop. The car jolted violently as it hit him. The sound was sickening. Thick dull thud. Kaylin was thrown onto the hood, his body crumpling against the windshield before sliding off onto the pavement. The car finally came to a stop. The world snapped back into real time, the sounds rushing in. The screams, the crying, the frantic calls to 911. Seline burst from the driver's side, her sanity returning in a horrific wave of realization. She fell to her knees beside Kaylin's motionless form, her own screams now ones of utter despair. Kaylin. No, no, no." Liam held me tightly, his body trembling against mine, whether from adrenaline or fear I didn't know. I was shaking uncontrollably, my eyes fixed on the scene. The pavement beneath Kaylin was dark and spreading. The ambulance and police arrived within minutes. The campus was sealed off. Seline was read her rights, sobbing hysterically as she was put into a police car. Kaylin, unconscious and bleeding profusely, was loaded into an ambulance, its sirens wailing a mournful song as it sped away. I gave my statement to the police on autopilot, Liam's arm never leaving my shoulders. The officers' faces were grim. It was all on video. Dozens of students had recorded the entire thing. The aftermath was a blur of shock and silence. The university went into lockdown, offering counseling to traumatized students. The story made local news, then national news. The Sterling family, once a symbol of old money elegance, was now at the center of a sordid tabloid scandal. I learned later that Kaylin had survived, but he had lost his right leg. It had been crushed beyond repair. His football career, his easy golden boy future. All of it gone. Seline was charged with attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon and a host of other crimes. Her lawyers would argue temporary insanity, and given her history and the wealth of the Sterling family, she might not spend her life in prison, but she would never be free of the consequences. The girl who had always wanted to be the center of attention finally was, and it had destroyed her. In the days that followed, Liam was my rock. He stayed with me, made me tea, held me when the nightmares came. He never asked for anything, never pushed. He was just there. Solid. Present. One evening as we sat on my dorm room floor, the silence between us was comfortable. The setting sun cast long shadows across the room. Liam, I said softly, breaking the quiet. That day at the amusement park, you said we'd met before. When? He looked at me, his eyes soft in the twilight. He smiled a little. You really don't remember, do you? St. Jude's Hospital. About 10 years ago. A memory, faint and dusty, stirred. A hospital hallway. My mother had her appendix out. I was bored wandering the corridors. I saw a boy, I said slowly, piecing it together. He was crying. Sitting all alone on a bench. Liam nodded. My grandfather was dying. I'd stepped out of the room because I didn't want him to see me cry. I felt so alone. And then this girl with long dark hair came up to me. She didn't say anything. She just danced. The memory flooded back. A silly, improvised little dance to cheer up a sad stranger. I had completely forgotten. You stayed until my father found me, Liam said. You told me it was okay to be sad but that I shouldn't be alone. I never forgot your face. When I saw you again here on campus following that Sterling guy around, I didn't know how to approach you. You seemed so different from the fearless girl in the hospital. Then Leo posted that picture and you had that look in your eyes again. The fearless one. I had to try. Tears welled in my eyes. In my previous life, consumed by Kaylin, I would have never noticed a Liam Thorne. I had been so focused on one star that I missed the entire constellation. Now I saw it. I saw him. I reached out and took his hand. I remember now, I whispered. He laced his fingers through mine. So, he said, his voice gentle. Would you be willing to give it a try with me? For real this time. I looked at our joined hands, then back into his sincere, hopeful eyes. The ghosts of the past were finally receding, silenced by the simple, profound truth in front of me. Yes, I said, my voice clear and sure. I would. The rest of the semester passed in a strange, quiet harmony. The shadow of the incident began to slowly recede, though it never fully left. The campus gossip moved on to new dramas, but the name, Seline Chin, was now synonymous with tragedy and madness. Kaylin Sterling was spoken with a mix of pity and morbid curiosity. I didn't visit Kaylin in the hospital. There was nothing left to say. Our story was over, its final chapter written in blood and asphalt. My closure wasn't in forgiveness or confrontation. It was in the simple, peaceful act of moving on. My life became my own. I was a Lara Vance again. Not Kaylin's shadow, not Seline's rival, not a victim. I was a dance major. I was a surfer. I was Leo's best friend. And tentatively, joyfully, I was Liam Thorne's girlfriend. It was nothing like my relationship with Kaylin. There was no performance, no desperate shaping of myself to fit a mold. The Liam, I was just me. The me who loved edgy pixie cuts and thrilling roller coasters. The me who could be quiet and thoughtful or loud and silly. He seemed to cherish all of it. We studied together in comfortable silence. He came to every one of my dance performances not because he felt obligated but because he genuinely loved to watch me move. I dragged him surfing, and though he was comically bad at it, he laughed the whole time, never once complaining that it was unladylike. One afternoon we were walking through the botanical gardens on campus. He stopped by a particularly vibrant patch of lilies. "You know," he said, taking my hand, "my mother's birthday is next week. She's having a small party at the house. She'd really like to meet you." A flicker of old anxiety sparked in me. Meeting the family. It had been the beginning of the end with Kaylin. Liam sensed my hesitation. "Don't feel pressured. I'm inviting some other classmates too. Leo is coming. Even if you just come as a friend, I'd be happy." His consideration only made me want to go more. "I'd love to," I said. The Thorne estate was everything the Sterling home was not. Warm, inviting, and filled with genuine laughter. His parents were delightful, his mother a celebrated artist who immediately pulled me into a conversation about the emotional language of dance. Leo was there, making everyone laugh with his dramatic retelling of our surfing misadventures. And then I saw them. Across the crowded patio, the Sterling family had arrived. Eleanor Sterling, her face etched with new lines of grief and stress. And Kaylin sitting in a wheelchair, a blanket over his lap where his legs should be. His eyes were older, shadowed with a pain that was more than physical. Mrs. Sterling saw me and after a moment's hesitation made her way over. Kaylin maneuvered his wheelchair to follow, his movements still awkward and new. "Elara," Mrs. Sterling said, her voice lacking its former steel. "It's good to see you." Her eyes were sincere. She had always been a tough woman but a fair one. "Auntie," I replied politely. Kaylin's eyes were fixed on me, filled with a complexity of emotion I couldn't unravel. Regret, longing, shame. "Elara," he said, his voice rough. When a familiar, calm voice cut through the tension. "Elara, there you are. I've been looking all over for you." He looked effortlessly handsome, a steady presence in the turmoil. He nodded respectfully to Mrs. Sterling and Kaylin. "Mrs. Sterling, Kaylin. I hope you're well." His tone was polite but carried a subtle, protective edge. He turned to me, his eyes warming. "Would I be lucky enough to ask you for a dance?" he asked, extending his hand. It was a rescue, but it was also an invitation. I looked at the Sterlings, the mother clinging to a broken dream, the son broken in body and spirit, and I felt a final piece of the past let go. I placed my hand in Liam's. "It would be my pleasure." After a polite goodbye, he led me to the dance floor set up on the lawn. As we swayed to the music under the twinkling lights, he leaned close. "Thank you," I whispered. "For what?" he murmured, his hand warm on my back. "For seeing me," I said. "The real me. Even when I didn't know who that was anymore." He held me closer. "Always." The party wound down. As we were saying our goodbyes, Kaylin maneuvered his wheelchair over to me. Liam gave me a reassuring nod and stepped away to give us privacy. Kaylin looked up at me, his eyes clear for the first time since the accident. The entitlement, the confusion, it was all gone. In its place was a weary, hard-won acceptance. "You've lived a good life this time, Elara," he said softly. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything unsaid. He knew. In some impossible way, after staring into the abyss, he knew that this was a second chance and that he had squandered his. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was just acknowledging that I had found my way without him. I nodded slowly. "I'm trying to." I turned and walked away toward Liam, who was waiting for me by the car. I didn't look back. There was nothing left for me there. The path ahead was lit with a new, gentle light. Graduation day arrived in a blaze of sunshine and blooming cherry trees. The air hummed with the excited energy of hundreds of students in black caps and gowns, ready to step into the future. I stood among them not as a shadow but as myself. Backstage in the large auditorium, our dance crew was a whirlwind of nervous energy and last-minute preparations. This was our final performance together, our senior showcase. I was applying the final touches to my stage makeup when a younger sophomore poked her head into the dressing room. "Elara, there's someone here to see you. He says it's important." My heart gave a nervous flutter. I couldn't imagine who it would be. Liam and my family were already in the audience. I walked out into the wing of the stage. And there he was. Kaylin Sterling. sitting in his wheelchair in the dim backstage light, watching the empty stage with a quiet, contemplative expression. He looked older, his face thinner, but the frantic desperation was gone from his eyes. They were calm but deeply sad, filled with a lifetime of regret he was too young to rightly own. He turned as I approached. A faint, sad smile touched his lips. "I just wanted to say break a leg," he said. The old phrase hung in the air between us, fraught with new, painful meaning. He didn't seem to notice. "I heard your piece is amazing." "Thank you, Kaylin," I said, my voice gentle. He looked at me for a long moment, taking in my costume, my sharp haircut, the confidence in my posture. "You found yourself," he stated simply. "I came back to myself," I corrected him softly. He nodded, understanding the difference. "I'm glad." There was no bitterness in his voice, only a profound and weary honesty. "Goodbye, Ilara." "Goodbye, Kaylin." I turned and walked away, back toward the light and the noise of my friends. I didn't look back. His chapter was closed, not with drama or anger, but with a quiet, final acknowledgement. We had both been reborn from the wreckage of our pasts, but we had walked two very different paths. Then it was time. The music for our piece began, a powerful, driving rhythm that pulsed through the floorboards. We took our positions in the darkness. The curtain rose. A spotlight hit the center of the stage. And we exploded into motion. Our piece was a story of breaking free, of finding your own rhythm amidst the noise of the world. It was angry, it was joyful, it was defiant, it was liberated. I poured every ounce of my journey into the movement. The pain of my first life, the betrayal, the fear, the rebirth, the discovery of a love that demanded nothing but my authentic self. I was no longer dancing for anyone's approval. I was dancing for me. In the audience, I knew my parents were watching, their hearts bursting with pride. Leo was probably cheering obnoxiously. Liam. I could feel his gaze like a physical touch, warm and steady, willing me on. As we moved into the final crescendoing sequence, a memory surfaced, sharp and clear. Liam's words in the garden, "You know, my mother's birthday is next week." And then another older memory, the one he had reminded me of. A hospital hallway, a crying boy, a silly dance. The pieces clicked into place with perfect, breathtaking clarity. The boy in the hospital had been Liam. The girl who danced for him had been me. Our paths had crossed long before Kaylin Sterling, long before college. We had been connected by a single kind moment that he had carried with him for a decade. A genuine, effortless smile spread across my face, right there in the middle of the performance. The music, the movement, my friends beside me, the boy in the audience who had never forgotten me. It all fused into a perfect moment of pure, unadulterated joy. The final note hit. We struck our ending pose, chests heaving, the roar of the applause washing over us like a wave. As the curtain fell, my eyes immediately sought his in the darkness of the wings. He was there waiting for me. He didn't rush the stage. He just stood there, his eyes glowing with an emotion so deep it made my breath catch. They were the same eyes from the hospital all those years ago. Sincere, full of wonder, and now full of a love that had waited patiently for me to find my way home. I walked off the stage, past my celebrating teammates, and right into his open arms. He held me tightly, spinning me around once, my laughter mixing with the fading applause. "You were magnificent," he whispered into my hair. I pulled back just enough to look at him, my hands on his face. "I remember everything," I said. He smiled, that soft, private smile meant only for me. "I know." The old saying drifted through my mind, a promise fulfilled. When you bloom, the breeze will come. I had spent a lifetime bending myself into a shape for someone else, wilting in the shade of his preferences. Now I had finally grown toward my own sun, wild and untamed. And the breeze, gentle, steadfast and sure, had been there all along. The end.